Are you two having a good time tonight? Hell yeah! He's like, hell yeah.
Oh my God. It's just awkward, you know? It's just weird.
Hell yeah, welcome back. I've got Kendall Long from Bachelor Nation on the line. Kendall, how are you?
Good, how are you, love?
I'm doing well. On last night's episode, there was a lot going on, as I'm sure you know. As we saw in that clip, Peter and Victoria F. go on a one-on-one date where her ex, Chris Rice, was the musical guest. What was your reaction to that?
My reaction was, what are the odds that your ex-boyfriend, who's a country singer, would be on like that show with you? But I also thought that, you know, you can't help like what happens with, you know, with the show. And I almost felt like she was so upset over something that I was like, you know, I don't know if it's that big of a deal.
Well, at one point I thought the song was actually about her and that Chase was like, you know, singing to her. How awkward was this knowing that it was her ex-boyfriend?
Yeah, it's definitely an awkward moment to have like your ex-boyfriend staring at you, dancing and kissing like someone that you're really, really interested in. And I'm almost surprised that he didn't say something sooner, and he was like acting all casual with Peter.
Yeah, he seemed like they were like best buds. I thought it was gonna be like, hey, just so you know, man, but he didn't. Maybe he didn't feel like it was a story to tell. Chris actually spoke about this on his an appearance on the show, saying he was really pissed off about the way the producers handled it. Do you think that was planned, given you've been on the show before?
I don't know if it was planned. I mean, I do feel like there must have been, I mean, because he's like a popular person, I feel like maybe it was known that she had dated him in the past. So it's hard to like know what happened there, but I feel like once it did happen, it was almost weird that it wasn't addressed right away. Like they didn't talk about it right away, and I think because of that, it became more and more awkward as the date went on. Like I feel like if I was in there, I would have been like, oh yeah, like I know this person, I dated this person in the past, and that's weird, okay.
Right, and you would have just moved right through it. I was thinking the same thing. I probably would have just said it like, oh my God, but then still had a good time on the date, right? She kind of kept it going.
Yeah, I mean, you can't, yeah, I mean, I think it's only awkward if you make it awkward. And so in that case, I think it was just like mega awkward.
I mean, listen, it was obviously a difficult situation for Victoria F. She actually did let Peter know about her past eventually. Let's watch that clip.
Chase and I used to date. And...
Like the singer, Chase? The guy that was doing the concert?
Yeah.
Wait, what?
Sorry. I don't know what to say.
Drama never stops on The Bachelor, Kendall. Well, Chris actually said they only spent one night together. So given that, do you think she needed to mention this at all?
I feel like it's fair for her to mention it. I don't think she should have said, I understand if you don't want to continue with me after or date me after, because that's part of her past that makes her who she is. And I feel like she shouldn't be ashamed of something that she experienced.
How do you think Peter was feeling in that moment? Obviously, he was surprised, but do you think he was pissed off?
I think he was surprised. I don't think he was pissed off. I don't think that's the right feeling to have. I feel like he was more so worrying about how she felt and trying to console her. And he was doing a really good job of just being like, hey, this is no big deal. Let's laugh about it and let's move on. We had a great day regardless of that.
Well, it was a jam-packed drama episode because later on, Alayah comes back to the house. And I want to get into all that, but I want to touch on the moment when she started running the rumor mill. So let's take a look.
Kelsey has a date tomorrow.
Oh, I know. And I know Victoria F. had it yesterday. I know she was dating Chase Rice before the date.
What?
Oh, y'all didn't know that.
You are not going to come in here after being sent the home. I don't play the. You're fake. I have some very choice words to say to Peter, and he's gonna know who you are as a person.
Kendall, I got to break this down with you because you've been in the house with all of these women. You know, do you think Alayah was being malicious? I mean, you guys are all quarantined. You're not, you know, paying attention to the outside world. So what do you think her intent there was?
I don't think her intention was to be malicious. I think that it's extremely tempting when you go into the real world to have all this information coming at you. And I feel like sharing that wasn't supposed to hurt anybody. I think she was... I think naturally she probably just wanted to talk about everything that was happening because it is her world. We had a similar instance on Ari's season where someone went to the real world and then came back. And it wasn't really made to be that big of a deal, only because it's natural that you'd hear things.
Well, I want to jump to the group date where Peter took all of the ladies except for Kelsey to participate in the Bachelor Bowl. Victoria P sat out, claiming she had back pain. Do you think this was a strategic move to spend more time with Peter?
I don't think so. I think, if anything, it kind of takes you away from being able to interact with him and the other girls. So, although, I mean, of course, I think it did work in her benefit to a sense that she was able to talk with him and have, you know, she obviously has a close connection with Peter, and it was good to see like his empathy through that situation. But I don't feel like she was trying to like steal him and bring him aside. I mean, I guess my natural reaction is to go to like the non-negative side of it. So.
You're always very positive, Kendall. This is what I remember the most about you. The ladies ended up tying and had to share time with Peter. You know, you've been here before. How hard is it, especially at this point, to get time with The Bachelor?
Oh, it's extremely difficult. At this point, there's so many other women, and they all want to have their equal time with The Bachelor, so it's difficult to get that much time at all, even on, like, especially on group dates. So I can speak to the fact that I've been on plenty of group dates where it was a competition where half of the people weren't supposed to be at the end of the date, and then they ended up being at the end of the date, and it just gave so much less time. So I understand how frustrating it is, but ultimately, I feel like if Peter has an attraction towards certain people, that's going to show itself.
Ultimately, Peter followed his heart, and it's safe to say it was not a popular one. Let's take a look.
I am doing what I feel like I need to do to feel, you know, confident moving forward with all this, and I hope that you can understand that. So, Alayah, will you accept this rose?
Of course. I didn't expect Peter to ask Alayah to come back, and now I'm kind of disappointed in him.
I mean, okay, all these girls just went on a really tough date. They played football. They got, you know, bruises. Do you think it was fair for Alayah to come back in and get that rose after she'd been eliminated?
I think ultimately at the end of this, Peter's trying to find somebody that he really sees a future with. And if he potentially sees that with Alayah and feels like his judgment was off beforehand, I think it's completely fair. Who's to dictate who he should like and who he should give chances to? Because ultimately at the end of this, he's the one that decides who he wants to be with for the rest of his life. And it may not be comfortable in the house, but I don't believe a situation like this is supposed to feel comfortable.
Yeah, I don't think that's really supposed to be the point of it. But, you know, I mean, listen, everyone has a different motive, and we sort of learn that as the season goes on. Do you feel like Alayah genuinely came back for Peter?
Yeah. I mean, I think it was almost not fair for people to say that she came back just to be on the show. Like, oh, why didn't you talk to him during, like, Women Tell All? But that would have been too late. She wouldn't have been able to see if their relationship had a chance. So I think it's completely fair for her to come back, especially since it wasn't her choice to leave in the first place.
Do you think that her coming back and getting a rose gives her an upper hand, especially against the other women?
I think it almost puts them on an even playing field, almost because she did leave and he did send her home. So how do you make her feel like she's welcome and wanted? And I think giving a rose was probably the best way to display that. I don't think a lot of people felt the same way, but you know, the people that Peter gives roses to are the people that he wants to stay. And I think he's justified in those decisions.
Well, it was definitely a contentious decision. You know, he was happy to have Alayah come back, but her return had the ladies riled up, and Peter definitely felt the heat from some of them. Let's watch.
I've never felt so under-recognized by somebody. And for us who went on the group date, who bust our ass out there on the football field and literally have the physical bruises to show.
Literally, my ankle is still sore. My knee is still sore. And for you to give it to her, of all people, it really, really, really hurt.
Do you think the feelings here are valid from the women?
It's tough to say. I understand the frustration, and I know they went through like physical pain, and you know that's what it is when you play sports and go through that. I mean, that's definitely a part of it, and I feel like you'd wish that going through that you'd be rewarded in some sense. At the same time, this show is not a competition to see who's the best at sports. I mean, it's about what your heart is telling you, and if Peter's heart was saying to give it to Alayah, then I also feel like he was justified in that. And it's difficult because if this was like a football competition, I'd completely understand.
Right.
Like, hey, like, you know, they deserve like a medal for it, but it's just not.
Well, do you think Peter sort of deserve the women to come attack him, if you will? Because it isn't just his feelings involved. It's his journey, but obviously what he does affects the other women.
Of course, of course. I think it affects the other women, but I also feel like it's difficult when you put yourself in a position where you dictate other people's relationships. So because all these women have an issue with Alayah, now it becomes something that is an issue with Peter. And I almost feel like Alayah should be speaking to these women about their feelings towards her as opposed to Peter being the mediator with that. I think that almost makes it seem like, it almost puts him on a platform of like, you're responsible for all my feelings, you're responsible for how everyone's reacting to this, when I think it's almost unfair.
Well, you sort of mentioned that, you said that, you know, Alayah coming back is sort of putting them on an even playing field, but how I see it, it almost feels like it puts a target on her back, that the other women are going to be maybe a little bit nastier to her. Do you think she's going to last in this competition? I
think the drama is not done. I definitely think there's a lot more that's going to happen, and will she survive? Will their love survive? I mean, we've had a quote-unquote villain, you know, end up with The Bachelor before, so I feel like if their relationship is true, it could stand the test of time with this, but if it's not, then the foundation is already pretty rocky.
Well, well said, but before I let you go, speaking of being rocky, let's take a look at next week's crazy preview.
I'm literally getting slaughtered. She's a dramatic bitch.
Oh, blah, blah, blah.
She's crazy. She's emotionally unstable.
It's ridiculous.
You said there's someone here that wasn't here for the right reason.
I mean, this looks insane. There's a lot of, she's crazy, she's dramatic, she's unstable. Who do you think they're talking about?
Honestly, it makes me feel pretty sad that women feel like they have to point at others and call names like that, but I mean, it feels like it might be Alayah, only because she's the one that is at the center of everything. I would say Hannah Ann, but she kind of took a step back with the drama this week, and I really appreciated that. Or it could be someone completely new. You never know. I mean, it's always unpredictable.
Could be multiple women. We just may never know until we watch next week. That was a lot to unpack.
Ambulance.
Yeah, it could be Kendall. We don't know. That was a lot to unpack. Kendall, thank you so much for chatting with me today.